The New York Islanders played a sloppy game and fell to the St. Louis Blues 7-4. We'll talk about what went wrong, and unfortunately there was a lot of it, but there were a few bright spots as well. Plus, we have our weekly farm report, all that and a lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Gil Martin, so glad you could join us today and be part of the Locked On Islanders family. And thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Lots to discuss after last night's 7-4 defeat at the hands of the St. Louis Blues. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, feel free to email us. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. And I am always live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me on Twitter for some expert insight and analysis. And it's always great to interact with Islanders fans game time or anytime. So please do feel free to reach out. Not an easy night. The good news was it was my first trip to the UBS Arena. I am immunocompromised, so I was extra cautious with regard to COVID, and finally was able to go to the game last night. And beautiful arena, really did enjoy being at the game for the first time. What I didn't enjoy, though, was what I saw on the ice. This was just a poor performance overall by the New York Islanders, and the Islanders outshot the Blues, but you know, what was the final shot total? 40-28, but that isn't indicative of the way this game went, because even though, particularly in the first two periods, the Islanders outshot the Blues, the quality of chances that St. Louis had were so much better than the Islanders' quality of chances. And you know, you look at the first three goals scored by the Blues, and they were ahead 3-1 at that point. The first two goals both came on odd man rushes, where the Islanders' defense fell apart. They turned the puck over, and you had 2-on-1 breakaways. And I can't blame Ilya Sorokin, who didn't have a particularly strong day, but can't blame him for either of those goals that he gave up. But it was just allowing some really high quality scoring chances. And, you know, Sorokin wasn't able to bail them out this time. And then the third goal, which was scored by Ryan O'Reilly, he was diving and sort of on his way down and poked home a rebound. That was just a great individual effort. You tip your hat to Ryan O'Reilly. But where was the defense? Again, getting beaten to loose pucks, not boxing out your man, allowing, you know, turning the puck over. This was just a sloppy performance. There were some positives, you know, Noah Dobson, his usual goal and an assist, a nice power play goal from Zach Parise off a nice feed by Josh Bailey. That was pretty, but by the time Parise scored, it was already 5-2 St. Louis. And you're just not going to be able to come back from, you know, a 5-1 deficit with 16 minutes and 10 seconds left in the game. That part of it was just disappointing. And, you know, the other bright spot, well, it's always good to see J.G. Pageau get on the board. And, you know, first goal as an Islander for Hudson Fasching. He hustles. He played not bad. Not sure he can, finish very often because he struggles. He forechecks well. He hits well. He creates situations well, but not always easy for him to finish. But he plays nicely for a fourth line guy, and I was happy to see him get his first goal with the Islanders. Other than that, the other good thing, I guess, the Islanders do fight back with a little less than 5 minutes left. It goes from 5-1 to 5-4, but you can't rely on those strong third period comebacks and think you're going to beat even average teams consistently. This is a Blues team that has been giving up 4, 5, 6 goals a game on a regular basis, and the Islanders just could not get enough quality scoring chances against them until it was too late. And yeah, okay, you peppered 40 shots at Thomas Greiss, and Greiss, played pretty well until late in the game, but you are not going to win a lot of games when you fall behind 5-1. It just isn't going to happen. And it was great to see the third period surge late in the game, but no, you're just not going to get the job done consistently falling behind like that. And one other thing, the Islanders just weren't as physical as they normally were. Romanov and Matt Martin each with 4 hits. Casey Cizikas had 3, but the physicality wasn't there. Only one Islander had more than 1 block shot. That was Adam Pelech. There just wasn't a feeling in that arena that this team came to play. And realistically, at the end of the day, if you're not going to come to play in this league, you're going to leave a lot of points on the table. And as we discussed on yesterday's show, when you look at the Islanders' upcoming schedule, they can't afford to leave a lot of points on the table because things are about to get a lot more difficult. So, I'm just at a loss. Rough game for Scott Mayfield. He was a -4, and he had some of those turnovers. And I'm a big Scott Mayfield fan, but this was not a great effort by him. Adam Pelech got shaken up. That was very upsetting, and the lack of a penalty call on that play, or the lack of a major penalty call, also disappointing. Just overall, not liking what I'm seeing. And believe it or not, now, losing this game, Islanders are now in 4th place in the Metropolitan Division. They're tied with Pittsburgh for 3rd, but Pittsburgh has a game in hand. And they're 1 point behind Carolina, but Carolina has a couple of games in hand. And now the schedule gets tough. So this lack of effort, this lack of a feeling that this team starts the game when the puck drops for the opening faceoff, it isn't going to get it done. In the first period, for long stretches, the 4th line was the only line generating quality chances until Dobson scored with a little more than 2 minutes left in the period. You have got to be there from the minute the puck drops. And the fact that the Islanders haven't done that consistently has really hurt them over the course of this season. So wake up, Lane Lambert. You got to get this team to play from the beginning of the game. And if you don't, you're going to have more nights like this, because third period comebacks down 2-3 goals, they are the exception, not the rule. And if that's your pattern, you're not going to have a great season. All right, we have got more to get to on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. We have our weekly farm report as we talk all things Bridgeport Islanders, all that, and a lot more still to come on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to World Cup soccer and esports and, of course, hockey. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, You'll find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. And hey, Islanders, Devils, Friday, check out the odds because the Islanders will be underdogs and you could probably get some good ones at BetOnline. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Time now for our weekly farm report as we talk all things Bridgeport Islanders. And it was another solid week down in Bridgeport. This team doing very well, and it's been great to watch this season. Recapping those 3 games, last Wednesday, Islanders beating the Providence Bruins, the team in first place, and they scored a 4-3 win in that game, and it was 3 first-period goals and then a winner by Chris Terry midway through the third to get the victory. 3 game winners for Terry, Ruslan Iskakov, William Dufour, and Otto Koivula also scoring. Jakub Skarek, 21 saves to earn the win, and the Islanders got the week off to a good start. They followed that up with another strong game Saturday against the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Penguins. A 5-1 win, a goal and 2 helpers for Chris Terry, 32 saves for Corey Schneider, and the Islanders break out with that 5-1 win. Really good, 1 goal on the power play. That's the 4th straight game they have scored at least 1 power play goal, killing off 6 shorthanded situations, so that was really strong. And the Islanders just playing very opportunistic hockey. William Dufour with the power play goal, so that was a very good thing. And look, Andy Andreoff, Chris Terry, they have 5-game point streaks now as of that Saturday game. So a strong performance by the Bridgeport Islanders and a second victory there. Unfortunately, Sunday, they could not keep the momentum going. The Springfield Thunderbirds beating the Islanders 3-1 in that one. Samuel Bolduc with the only goal, but it was not enough. That ended a 3-game winning streak and a 7-game unbeaten streak in regulation. But, wasn't what they wanted. Now, that was the first loss for Bridgeport in regulation to Springfield, but overall, a disappointing performance. Jakub Skarek, 16 saves, and the Islanders' power play failed. They go 0-4, and that was a big difference. You look now at the standings, and Bridgeport is still 3rd in the Atlantic Division. But, there are 3 elite teams. You have Providence, Hershey, and Bridgeport, and very little space separating those 3. And then after that, there's a drop, and then you have Charlotte and Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and Lehigh Valley following in the standings. But Bridgeport right now, 13-4-4 through 21 games. Hard to believe that 13-4-4, a 714 point percentage, puts you in 3rd place in the division, but this is a very strong division. By contrast, in the North Division, the Islanders would be in 1st place. In the Central Division, they would be in 1st place, and in the Pacific Division, they would be in 1st place. So here the Islanders are 3rd in their division, but also 3rd best record in the league. Go figure that one out. As for scoring, there's a 3-way tie for the lead on this team. Andy Andreoff, Chris Terry, and Samuel Bolduc all tied with 19 points. Andreoff with 11 goals, Terry with 5, Bolduc with 4. Ruslan Ishkakov has 17 points, 6 of those goals. William Dufour now 8 goals in 20 games over an 80-game season. That would be a 32-goal pace, so that's pretty impressive. Arno Durando with 15 points. through 21 games. So Bridgeport continues to do well. You win 2 out of 3 over last week, and that has to be an encouraging sign. Corey Schneider still playing outstanding goal for the Bridgeport Islanders. He is now 9-1-1 on the season, a .921 save percentage and a .242 goals against average. Jakub Skarek, a .349 goals against average and .883 save percentage. He is 4-3-3 on the season. So Skarek not playing as well as Schneider, but starting to turn it around a little bit, and hopefully he can pick things up there. This weekend, 3 games back to back for the Bridgeport Islanders. The first 2 are at home. The Hershey Bears come to town Friday night. That's a 7 o'clock Eastern time start at Bridgeport. That's a big game. Then the first place Providence Bruins come to town Saturday for a 7 o'clock start. And then Sunday, a 3:05 afternoon start in Providence against the Bruins. So a very important weekend as the third place Islanders take on the second place Hershey Bears, and then a home and home with the first place Providence Bruins. If the Islanders can do well this weekend, they could find themselves in first place in the Atlantic Division. If you want to come see the Islanders' future stars play now, Friday and Saturday at Bridgeport is your chance to head over and see some of these players. William Dufour, Atu Ratu, these are the guys you want to keep an eye on, and they are in Bridgeport playing right now. We have got more to get to on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. We will talk about, first we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day, and then we'll talk about the tough road ahead for this team. It's going to be a challenge, and we're going to really get an idea of how good this Islanders team is. We'll talk about that and more on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And we are going to go back because yesterday, or actually Monday, was the 52nd birthday of former Islanders defenseman Kevin Haller. Haller, originally drafted in the first round by the Buffalo Sabres in 1989, made his NHL debut during the 90-91 season for Buffalo. 6'2", 195 pounds, pretty good size for a player in the late 80s, early 90s. Moved on to play for the Canadiens, the Flyers, the Hartford Whalers, then the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Anaheim Mighty Ducks before joining the Islanders in the 2000-2001 season. Played 1 game with the Isles in 01-02 before hanging up his skates. Haller, not a very dominant offensive player, especially by the time the Islanders got him. He had 1 goal and 6 points in 30 games for the Isles, along with 56 penalty minutes for his career. 642 NHL games, 41 goals, 138 points, 907 penalty minutes. Add 64 playoff games. Was on the Cup-winning Canadiens in 1993. 7 goals, 23 points, and 71 penalty minutes in the playoffs for his career. Taking a look at one of his better games with the Islanders, November 27th, 2000, at the old barn, the Nassau Coliseum, Islanders and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And in this one, Kevin Weeks gets the start for Tampa Bay, while Wade Flaherty in goal for the Islanders, and the Islanders fall behind early. They are the Islanders get on top early on the power play with Martin St. Louis serving a too many men on the ice penalty. Roman Hamrlik, his 8th, from Brad Isbister and Kenny Janssen at 8:22, 1-0 Islanders. And then 26 seconds later, the Islanders make it 2-0. Claude Lapointe, his 3rd, from a young guy named Zdeno Chara and Tim Connolly, 2-0 Isles. Then our Islanders birthday of the day, Kevin Haller, his first of the year, his only goal as an Islander. Claude Lapointe and Tim Connolly with the assists. Isles up 3-0. But back come the Lightning. Vincent Lecavalier, his 10th from Martin St. Louis. makes it 3-1. But the Islanders answer with 7 seconds left in the opening period. Dave Scatchard, his fifth from Claude Lapointe, and our Islanders' birthday of the day, Kevin Haller, Isles up 4-1 after 1. Second period, all bolts. A power play goal with Claude Lapointe in the box for boarding Frederick Modin, his 12th from Pavel Kabina and Brad Richards. That makes it 4-2. And then Brad Richards, his 7th from Corey Sarich at 16:58. The Isles lead cut to 1 goal after 2 periods. But in the third, Taylor Pyatt, his first from Dave Scatchard, just 58 seconds into the period, gets the Islanders a 5-3 lead. Martin St. Louis makes it 5-4 at the 2:23 mark. Brian Holzinger and Ryan Johnson with the assists. But then Oleg Kavasha gives the Islanders a little breathing room. He makes it 6-4. His 6th from Mariusz Cherkovsky and Roman Hamrlik at 8:40. And Mark Parrish, 2 minutes later, puts the game out of reach. His 5th from Tim Connolly. Final score in this one, Islanders 7, Lightning 4. The win to Wade Flaherty. He had 15 saves. For our Islanders' birthday of the day, Kevin Haller, a goal, an assist, a +2, and he scored on 1 of his 2 shots. Haller on the ice for a hair under 19 minutes. So Kevin Haller is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Things are not going to be easy for this Islanders team. You've now lost 3 out of your last 4, and the schedule is going to get tough. Friday at New Jersey. Saturday at home against the Carolina Hurricanes, 2 of the teams that are ahead of you in the Metropolitan Division standings. Then a trip to Boston, Arizona, Vegas, Colorado, and the New York Rangers. So basically, 6 of your next 7 on the road, and 6 of your next 7 against some of the best teams in the NHL. The Islanders, we're going to see whether or not this fast start by this team was something that was real, or if it is something that this team, cannot sustain. And I'm not saying they have to, out of the next 6 games, you have to go 5-1, 5-1, or 4-1-1. Break even. Go out against these top teams over the next 6-7 games and, get me some points. Get me some points. In these 7 games, get me 7 or 8 points. And I think that would be really, really solid. And, then there's a brief homestand and then a West Coast road trip after that. It is not going to be easy. And we're going to really see, number one, how Lane Lambert handles this team and whether or not they can overcome some of their problems early in games. And number 2, how the Islanders stack up against some of the best teams in the league. You beat New Jersey or Boston or Carolina. They've already beaten Colorado once. Vegas. You beat these teams. You really show that you belong with the better teams in the league. You go out in these next 7 games and go 2-5, then I think we all come to the understanding that if Lou Lamoriello doesn't get some goal-scoring help for this team sooner rather than later, they're not going to be able to sustain the early season success that they had. This next 7 games they're critical. They are critical. And it's a test for Lane Lambert. It's a test for this team. If they play the way they did last night against the Blues over the next 7 games, they'll be lucky to win 1 or 2. If they play the way they did against the Blackhawks or earlier in the season against the Avalanche or, some of the other games that they won, this team can go 4-3 or 5-2 or 4-2-1. Get me those 7 points in the next 7 games, and I think this team will be just fine. So lots to look out for, and let's hope this team can get it done. This is a huge, huge test. Thanks again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.